You know how people say, never mix money with relationships? Well, I learned that lesson the hard way. And honestly, even after 10 years, I'm still paying for it, literally. Let me take you back, because you need to understand how it all started before the real chaos unfolded. About a decade ago, I met this woman. At the time, I thought she was incredible, funny, sharp, confident, and honestly, she had this charm that made you feel like the most important person in the room. We dated, things escalated quickly, and before long, we were living together, planning a future, all of that. I thought I was building something permanent, something real, and to be fair, for a while, it did feel like that. After about 2 years together, we had a child, and let me tell you, becoming a father was the single most grounding, life-changing moment of my entire existence. I held my little one in my arms, and for the first time, I knew exactly what I was living for. But kids, as beautiful as they are, also test every fault line in a relationship. You can plaster over cracks for only so long before the whole structure begins to give way. Around the 5-year mark, it became clear we weren't going to last. We grew apart. She and I, well, we were oil and water, different goals, different ways of handling stress. And to be brutally honest, I started to see sides of her that made me realize I put her on a pedestal she never deserved. She had a sharp tongue, and she knew how to twist guilt like a knife. We argued, we reconciled, we argued again. It was a loop. Eventually, we split. Now, this is where I'll give credit where it's due. When it came to custody, we did something right. We agreed on 50-50 custody of our kid. No endless court battles. No using our child as leverage. Just an arrangement that worked. And honestly, our kid thrived under it. If you saw us on the outside, you'd probably think, wow, they've really figured it out. But behind closed doors, oh man, we bickered. Constantly. Not in front of the kid, thank God. But whenever it was just us, it felt like walking on eggshells. Now here's the part that'll make your blood boil. Years before the split, we opened a joint bank account. You know, the typical couples thing. You put money in, bills get paid. All that jazz. When we separated, I knew that account was a ticking time bomb. I wanted out of it immediately. So I went to the bank, told them I wanted my name off. And you'd think it would be simple, right? Just walk in, sign a form, done. Nope. The bank required both parties to sign off in person. And of course, that meant I had to rely on her cooperation. I signed the damn form. I went down there, filled everything out, left my part done. All she had to do was swing by and add her signature. That's it. One simple act, maybe 5 minutes of her time, and I would have been free from that joint account forever. But did she? No. Every time I brought it up, she brushed me off. I'll get to it. Stop nagging me. Why are you making this a big deal? Over and over, I asked, and over, she'd get annoyed, even angry. Eventually, it got to the point where just mentioning it would set her off like a firecracker. And I knew what was happening. She liked having that leverage, that tiny thread of financial control still binding us together. Even though we weren't a couple anymore, keeping me tied to that account gave her this sense of power. I could see it in the way she smirked whenever I tried to push the issue. Years passed, and honestly, I forgot about it sometimes. I never used that account. I didn't put money in. As far as I was concerned, it was dormant. Until one day, out of nowhere, I get this envelope in the mail, a collections notice. Now, I've always been responsible with money. I'm the type of guy who pays bills on time, checks his credit score, makes sure there are no loose ends. I'd never had a collection against my name in my life. So opening that envelope and seeing past due $300 overdrawn account with my name slapped on it felt like a punch to the gut. I stared at the paper, confused. $300? From what account? And then it hit me, that cursed joint account, the one she refused to close. I called the bank immediately, trying to explain the situation. Look, I haven't used this account in years. This wasn't me. I signed the form. I've tried to get off this account. You know what they said? Sorry, sir. Both parties are still legally responsible until both signatures are processed. So I was stuck. Apparently, she had quit her job, drained what little money was in there, and then just kept spending, ran it into the negative. And the bank, being the lovely institution it is, didn't care whose purchases they were, as long as my name was on it. I was just as responsible. I called her, fuming but trying to stay calm. "Hey, I just got a collections notice. Did you overdraw the account?" And she, in the most dismissive voice you can imagine, said, "Oh, yeah, that. Look, I opened a new account somewhere else. That's a you problem now." A you problem. Let that sink in. This wasn't some stranger messing with my finances. It was the mother of my child, someone who knew damn well how hard I worked to keep my financial record spotless. Someone who knew this would stain my credit, make things harder for me down the line. And she brushed it off like it was nothing, like I was overreacting. I swear, I felt my blood pressure skyrocket. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream, to unload years of pent-up frustration at her. But then I thought about my kid, about the fact that I still had to co-parent with this woman for another 8 years minimum. So I bit down hard on my anger, swallowed, and just said, "Fine." But inside, I was boiling. See, this wasn't just about $300. It was about the principle, about being tied to someone who, even after all these years, still found ways to screw me over. It was about the humiliation of seeing that collections notice with my name on it, knowing damn well I didn't cause it. It was about every time I begged her to go to the bank, every time she rolled her eyes or told me to shut up about it. This was the culmination of years of disrespect. And as much as I told myself to stay calm, as much as I tried to brush it off as just money, something in me snapped. This wasn't going to be another one of those things where she got away with it scot-free while I carried the burden. Oh no, I was done being her safety net, her scapegoat, her silent punching bag. This time, I was going to find a way to make her feel it. The thing about anger is, it doesn't just vanish. You can bury it, you can force a smile, you can even convince yourself that you're above it all. But underneath, it simmers. And if you leave it long enough, it finds a way to come out. That's exactly what happened to me. After that collections notice, I tried, at first, to just accept it. $300, I told myself. It's not the end of the world. But every time I thought about it, I felt this crawling sensation in my chest, like my heart was trying to punch its way out. Because it wasn't just the money. It was what it represented. A stain on my record. A constant reminder that she still had a way to screw with me whenever she wanted. I remember lying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, how the hell did I let myself get here? I've done everything right. I've worked hard, paid my bills, been a good dad, stayed out of trouble, and yet, here I was being dragged to the mud because of someone else's irresponsibility. And the worst part, there was nothing I could do about it. Or at least, that's what I thought. The next time I saw her, it was for the custody handoff. I had my kid's backpack slung over one shoulder, and she was leaning against her car, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. When she looked up, she gave me that same smug half smile she always did, the one that made me feel like I was a punchline of some private joke. I handed over the backpack, bent down to hug my kid, and then stood up, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about that account." She sighed, exaggerated and loud, like I'd just ruined her whole day. "Oh my God, are you seriously still on that? I told you it's a you problem." That phrase, those 3 words, a you problem, it echoed in my head like a bell, louder and louder, until I had to clench my fist just to stop myself from exploding. "Do you have any idea what this does to me?" I asked. "Do you care at all that my credit just got trashed over something I didn't even do?" She rolled her eyes. "It's $300. Grow up. $300. To her, it was nothing. To me, it was years of responsibility and effort undone in a single stroke. I wanted to scream in her face, to make her understand what she'd done. But instead, I just nodded, tight-lipped, and walked away. Because if I'd stayed another second, I would have said something I couldn't take back in front of my kid. But walking away didn't mean forgetting. Oh no, it meant planning. See, I started thinking about patterns. This wasn't the first time she'd left me holding the bag. Back when we were together, she'd max out a credit card on emergencies that were really just shopping sprees. She'd promise to pay half the rent and then forget until I covered it to keep us from being evicted. And every single time, I was the one who had to fix it. But now I realized something. I wasn't her safety net anymore. I didn't have to protect her. I didn't have to cushion the fall. If she wanted to be reckless, fine, but this time, she was going to land flat on her face. The problem was, how? How do you get revenge on someone when you're still tied to them through your kid? I couldn't risk doing anything that would hurt my custody arrangement. I couldn't explode on her publicly or take her to court over every little thing, because at the end of the day, the judge would just see us as two parents who can't get along, and I'd lose precious time with my child. No, I had to be smarter, subtle, patient, and patience, as it turned out, was my greatest weapon. Weeks passed. The collections notice sat on my desk, mocking me. Every time I saw it, I felt that spark of anger flare up again. But instead of letting it consume me, I started to channel it. I began researching, learning about how collections worked, how joint accounts could screw both parties, how credit reporting could make or break someone's future. The more I read, the clearer it became. She thought she stuck me with a problem. What she didn't realize was that she was still tethered to that same sinking ship. See, the debt didn't just drag me down. It dragged her down, too. Her name was on it, just like mine. And unlike me, she didn't exactly have a history of being financially responsible. Her credit was already shaky, and this just made it worse. One night, as I was scrolling through the details of the account online, I noticed something. She hadn't fully closed it. She just opened a new one somewhere else and abandoned this one, which meant, technically, she was still vulnerable. If she ever tried to apply for something big, like a car loan or, God forbid, a mortgage, that collection would come back to haunt her. And that's when the idea started forming. Revenge wasn't about paying the $300 or even clearing my name. Revenge was about making her feel the weight of her own actions, about letting her taste the same frustration, the same helplessness that she dumped on me. So I waited. Months went by. I stayed cordial during handoffs. I kept my tone even, my words polite. On the surface, I was calm, even friendly. But inside, I was watching, waiting. Every little detail she let slip, I tucked away. The new job she bragged about getting. The shiny car she suddenly started driving. The plan she casually mentioned for moving into a better place. She thought she was building a new life, free of consequences. But I knew the truth. That past she tried to shrug off as a you problem was going to catch up with her. And when it did, I'd be right there to watch it happen. The first crack came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, during a pickup, she showed up in tears. Her mascara was streaked. Her hair was a mess. And for once, she didn't have that smug little smile plastered on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked, playing the part of the concerned co-parent. She sniffed, wiped her nose, and muttered, I don't want to talk about it." But later, through the grapevine, I still had mutual friends with some of her family. I heard the truth. She'd applied for financing on a new apartment. And guess what? Denied. Too much negative credit history. And that joint account collection? Oh, it was right there at the top of the list. When I heard that, I won't lie, I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt like the universe was evening the score. But I also knew this was just the beginning. Because the thing about karma is, once it starts rolling downhill, it doesn't stop. And I had no intention of lifting a finger to slow it down. The thing about revenge is, it doesn't always come in some grand, cinematic moment. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes it comes disguised as life just finally catching up to someone who's been dodging responsibility for far too long. After I found out she'd been denied that apartment, I realized I didn't need to lift a finger to punish her. All I had to do was let the consequences of her own actions keep rolling. But that didn't mean I couldn't make sure those consequences hit harder. See, the collections notice wasn't just sitting in my drawer anymore. I'd started tracking it, calling the collections agency, keeping tabs on what was happening with the account. And every time I checked in, I made sure to confirm, in painstaking detail, that her name was just as tied to it as mine. If anything, they seemed more interested in her than me, because her credit was already a wreck. Meanwhile, I doubled down on protecting myself. I set up alerts on my credit report, locked down my own accounts, and made sure no new debts could sneak under my name. I wanted to be in control of the storm this time, not just a passenger. And sure enough, the storm kept hitting her. One evening, during a pickup, she snapped at me out of nowhere. "Do you even know what you've done to me?" She spat, her voice sharp, her eyes narrowed. I raised an eyebrow, playing dumb. "What do you mean?" She waved her arms dramatically. "Because of you, I can't get approved for anything. I tried for a car loan, denied. Tried for a credit card, denied. Do you know how humiliating it is to get rejected over and over?" I almost laughed. I wanted to say, "Welcome to my world, sweetheart. Remember that $300 you shrugged off as my problem? Yeah, this is that." But instead, I just tilted my head, kept my voice calm, and said, "I told you for years we needed to close that account. You never listened. This isn't me. This is you." The look on her face. Oh, I'll never forget it. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. No smirk, no eye roll, no dismissive whatever. Just silence. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Vindication. But karma wasn't finished with her yet. A few months later, I found out she'd lost that shiny new job she bragged about. Couldn't keep up with the bills. Started falling behind on rent. And because her credit was in the gutter, no landlord wanted to take her on. She had to crawl back to her parents' place, dragging her pride behind her like a broken suitcase. And me? I kept my head high, paid my bills, took care of my kid, kept everything steady, like I always had. The contrast between us grew clearer with every passing day. I was building stability, while she was sinking deeper into holes she dug for herself. Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't dancing on her misery just for the sake of it. I didn't want her destroyed. She's still the mother of my child, and I'll always want what's best for my kid. But for once, she was forced to face the reality she'd tried so hard to dump on me. And honestly, watching that happen was sweeter than any revenge plan I could have cooked up on my own. The real payoff came one night, when she called me out of the blue. Normally, we only texted about custody schedules. So seeing her name pop up as an incoming call was unusual. I answered, cautious. Her voice was small, almost shaky. "Hey, I need a favor." I leaned back in my chair, instantly on guard. What kind of favor? There was a pause, and then she admitted, "I need you to co-sign for something, just until I can get back on my feet." I swear, I almost burst out laughing. The audacity. After everything she'd put me through, after years of ignoring my requests, after calling my financial ruin a you problem, she had the nerve to ask me to tie myself to her finances again? I took a deep breath, savoring the moment, and said, "No, absolutely not." She tried to argue, her voice rising. "Come on, we have a kid together. Don't you care about making sure they have a stable home?" That one stung because of course I cared, more than anything. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me with guilt again. Not this time. "I do care," I said firmly. "That's why I've always made sure our kid has a stable home. On my side, they do. I'm not risking that by chaining myself to your mess again. You made this bed. Now you lie in it." Silence. Then a choked, frustrated sound. Half sob, half growl. And then she hung up. I sat there for a while after the call, letting the weight of it sink in. For years, she'd had the upper hand. She'd been the one dismissing me, brushing off my concerns, leaving me to clean up after her mistakes. But now she was the one begging, and I was the one saying no. The power dynamic had flipped completely, and it wasn't because I'd done anything underhanded. It wasn't because I'd schemed or plotted some elaborate takedown. All I'd done was stand my ground and let her own actions catch up to her. That was the sweetest revenge of all. Over time, things settled. She eventually found a smaller, cheaper place to rent, got a new job, not as flashy as the last one, but enough to keep her afloat. She never asked me for financial help again. I think she finally understood that I wasn't her safety net anymore. As for me, I kept moving forward, paid down debts, rebuilt my credit, kept providing for my kid. And every time I saw that little one smile, I knew I'd made the right choice. Not just in refusing her, but in learning to protect myself. So what's the lesson in all this? Simple: protect your name, protect your credit. And for the love of God, never leave yourself tethered financially to someone who's shown you they can't be trusted. Because when all goes south, and trust me, it will, you'll be the one holding the bag. And if you're lucky like me, you'll get to watch karma do its work, slow and steady, until the person who once smirked in your face is forced to choke on their own words. So yeah, next time someone tells you that's a you problem, just smile, because sooner or later it will be. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next one.